Yapping Fever.
Hello, welcome to Yapping Fever, the podcast about all things 20s, careers, dreams, chaos, growth, and the realness of adulting. I'm your host Tamara, and let's get into today's yap. My creative recommendation this week is a bit of a reflective one. It requires you to sit down, write some things down, and think about your past, but I do recommend you give it a shot. It is going around on TikTok at the moment because it's a very trendy, it's a trend. And it's the I got a coffee with my younger self. It's originally based off a poem that a woman wrote about catching up with her younger self and seeing her two versions meet and how they've changed. I really loved it. I participated in this trend myself, but I did originally write a longer one that I'm going to read out today. It touches on a few different aspects in your life, and you can choose any age. I personally chose 20 because I felt like that was a time in my life when I was struggling with some big moments, and I've shifted a lot from that age. And doing this trend has really shown me how much I've grown up and changed, and just like my perspective has shifted. So give it a go if you haven't. You can choose any age. Some people who are older have big 15-year gaps, but I just went with 3 years. So this is my one. I met my 20-year-old self for coffee today. She arrived 15 minutes late. I only arrived 5 minutes late. She orders an oat chai latte. I get a full cream caramel cappuccino. She told me she'll never trust boys again with tears in her eyes. I smile and shrug my shoulders at her, but don't let it slip about the boy who fills my heart with more love than I could ever imagine. I want her to be just as surprised as I was when it happens. She mentioned she's struggling with a larger friendship group, as people seem to be talking behind her back. I let her know that might be true, but not to worry, as there's 2 girls in that group who will stick by her, and they'll be the ones she'll only ever need. She tells me her Europe travel plans have fallen through again, so she'll probably never travel there with friends. I laugh and tell her to chill, because I just booked tickets for my 2-month Euro summer with my closest girls. Lastly, she tells me, tears slipping out of her eyes, that she's a failure because she hasn't made it in the industry she wants. I hold her hand and said we're still working on that, but at only 23, I promise her we're not failures, we are both still young. I just think it's really cute. It's a cute trend. I like to see how I've grown up and how my mindset has shifted. So give it a go. And if you do write one, send it to me. I'd love to see it. I'll post it on TikTok, and then I can watch it through there, because I'm reading everyone at the moment. I'm stopping and reading, and some of them are so heartbreaking, some of them are funny. You can put your own little twist on it, but yeah, give it a go. Today's podcast topic is one of my favorite topics in the world to talk about. If you know me personally, you know I love a little chit chat about this. So we're going to be talking about traveling. More specific, traveling in your 20s, my personal highlights from trips I've done, some funny stories for you as well. Some factors you should take into account when considering booking your next trip, and why I think you should definitely catch more flights. Before we can get into talking about traveling nowadays, I've got to take you back a few years, quite a long way ago, to talk about some of my traveling experience growing up. For me personally, I had the privilege of growing up traveling quite a lot with my family. My first international trip was when I was 3 years old. My family uprooted our life here in Melbourne and moved us overseas to the Netherlands, as my dad got a job working over there. Of course, I was very young, but I stayed there from the ages of 3 to 5, and my first memories come from that country. When we arrived back to Melbourne, my family took me back to Europe twice, when I was around 12 and 15. My family is huge skiers, so honestly, we went back to Europe just to ski the French Alps and enjoy winter over there. I also travelled to Queenstown, New Zealand twice for skiing in year 8 and year 9, and then to New Caledonia and Fiji with my mum. That was international trips. I was also lucky enough to travel interstate around Australia. I had family in Queensland, so I spent many holidays up there. Because I travelled and moved a lot in my childhood, I think my desire to travel still stems from that. When I was 18, I went on my first trip without my parents. I flew to Europe to meet my brother and his girlfriend in Rome. After Rome, I spent 2 weeks traveling with my brother to Germany, Netherlands, Czech Republic, Denmark, and then I did 1 solo week in London, England. I personally loved London. I'm a huge musical fan, so I pretty much spent my whole time on West End seeing shows. I saw 8 musicals in 7 days, I believe. I'm a hardcore Broadway girly. My favorites were Les Mis. I love Les Mis. I love the movie. I know there's controversy with the movie, but I think it's brilliant. So I saw that. Book of Mormon was really funny. I saw Anne Juliet. Six was so good. I've actually seen Six 3 times now, and it's one of my favorite musicals. And Dear Evan Hansen was brilliant. Brilliant. I loved it. Then, of course, COVID hit and the world shut down. Before that, though, I specifically remember sitting on the Underground tube in London and someone was reading the newspaper, and in the cover, on the front cover of the newspaper, in big capital letters, was "COVID has hit Westminster." And I remember being a bit scared because I wasn't really watching the news and paying attention because I knew COVID was a thing, but I didn't want to know what it was. Like, I was like too scared. And I was like, oh my God, like, that's pretty like scary. And then the tube stopped and the like voiceover was like, "This station is Westminster Station." And I was like, oh my God, this is it. This is where, like, in that movie, like, all hell breaks out, the world's gonna end. Yeah, I really wanted to like get off that train really quick. I didn't get off at Westminster. I like moved to the next station. Anyway, I got home safely without catching the virus. But I do also remember, like, I wanted to stay on because I loved London, and I was like calling my mum, like, do I extend my trip? But I had uni, so I came home, and lucky I did, because 2 weeks later we went into lockdown and I would have been stuck. I would have been stuck in London. After COVID, I definitely had the desire to go traveling again and explore new countries and new places. After being locked inside for so long, I knew it was one of the main things I wanted to do when lockdown ended. I'm really lucky that I have a girl group where the travel plans actually leave the group chat and we're actually able to go on trips together. So round of applause. Round of applause for the girls, because that doesn't always happen. So many times it's like, let's do a trip, and then no one ever books, nothing ever happens, and I'm a traveler, so I want to travel, so thank God I've got those girls. So the first trip we did after lockdown, I think it was actually in between lockdowns, because you know how Victoria was in them for so long. It was with my 2 girls, A and S, and we decided to do a road trip around South Australia. We packed all our stuff into my best friend's car and off we went on a camping trip. I won't lie, we definitely ended up renting an Airbnb for one of the last few nights because we were so sick of putting up a tent every 2 days, and we had one place where the tent just caved in on us all night because it was that windy. However, we visited Mount Gambier, Robe, Victorian Harbour and Adelaide. I remember in our last night in Adelaide, we were actually staying with some of my family friends. It was really nice. They put us up for the night and we were all sharing a room, just like a mattress was on the floor and our stuff was just like on the floor. And the one rule they had was like, keep your bedroom door shut, because they had this old dog. Honestly, I reckon it was 12. It was very frail looking. It was small. It was the dog that like has the tongue poking out of the side of its mouth. But and we're like, easy, we can do that. We just had a day trip where we went to a town in Adelaide that's like a German town, and we bought some snacks and we bought some food, and then we were like chilling at home, and my friend A and I were like, let's steal some of S's chocolate that she bought. She bought this nice German chocolate. I'm like, we're gonna pinch some. So we go to steal some and we notice that the bag's empty, and then we start laughing because we're like, oh my God, we can't have any, and like S has eaten the whole bag, which isn't also like S to eat lots of chocolate. So when she comes back into the room, we're like laughing, being like, you really loved the chocolate, didn't you? You ate the whole bag. And she was like, no, I didn't. I had 2. I'm saving it for my family. And A's holding this bag, and we're looking at the bag, and we're looking around at each other, and then it hits us that we left the door open, and this 12-year-old dog has walked in and eaten the whole bag of chocolate, which is literally half the size of this dog. I reckon the dog's stomach was smaller than the bag of chocolate. And we were so embarrassed. And then we had to like get it together because we were like in a laughing fit by then. And we had to go out and tell them like, the dog's eating the chocolate. So we're standing there in like a triangle. Like I'm at the front. I have to break the news because they're my family friends. So I'm at the front, and then A and S are like behind me. And we're like, hi, like I'm really sorry, but we left the door open and your dog has come in and eaten all our chocolate. And yeah, we hope it doesn't die because it looks like it's about to die. It was actually like lying on its back with its tongue still out. And I remember thinking like, it's already dead. It's already dead. And we were like, we don't have money for vet bills. Like we were freaking out. The dog lived. Thankfully, the dog was fine. We didn't have to spend all our money on the vet bill, but not letting that happen again because I nearly killed their dog. And it was so embarrassing. And also why I was like trying to explain, I remember A was at the back like trying not to laugh. So it was a night. It was a night. After that trip, me and my girls were like, we have to go international. It's time to book some tickets and explore a new country. We booked flights to Vietnam. We were 21. We'd all never been there before. And we still in that age where like it felt crazy that you could just like book a flight and go places without parents or a big group, even for that matter. So for that trip, we spent 3 weeks in Vietnam. We started in Hanoi. If you ever go to Hanoi, we cannot recommend a motorbike tour more. Me and my girls did it, and it was one of the biggest highlights from our whole entire trip. You book a tour. Ours ended up being a private tour. They drive the motorbikes, and you just sit on the back of them, and they take you through so many places of Hanoi. We went through the old city, we went to the street markets, we went to the banana fields. We also went to like a train street market where like a train comes straight through the middle of the shops. We drove through peak hour traffic, which was honestly scary. We just saw so many different sides of this one city, and it was truly eye-opening. Our tour guide was great as well. From there, we went to Ha Long Bay, Sapa, Hoi An, and Da Nang. When we were in Sapa, we stayed in a lovely hotel, but it was definitely more catered towards couples. It was also an eco-friendly place, so like there wasn't even TV and there wasn't much to do. It wasn't in the center of town. It was like 20 minutes down the bottom of the hill, and you had to take like a taxi there and back. So I felt like when we were in the hotel, we're like, we're staying here. We're not going out for dinner and then coming back. It's just not worth it. But we're 21 and we want to have some fun. So we're like, what can we do? Honestly, the only thing to do was to drink. So we like bought cheap vodka at the place previously, mixed it with some orange juice, and we had some prees. And then we were like, oh, we have to go have dinner. So let's go have dinner and some drinks just at the restaurant and in the hotel. And we went. Me and my girls are cocktail girls through and through. So we were like, we have to get a cocktail. After looking through the list, I chose one that was called B52. And I was like, I'm excited. It's going to be great. I thought it would be like a normal size cocktail come out. However, it was in like this little shot glass. And for context, it had a flame on it. So like, you know, that like blue flame that they like light up. So it's a real flame, okay? Just to be clear, it's a real flame. And I was like, okay. And the waiter was there. My friends are there. He gave me a straw as well. So I was like, cool. Did I just like shot it? Like, you know, sip it? So that's what I did. I put the straw in. I took the most massive sip. And I go to swallow it, and the waiter goes, no, don't swallow. What? What do you mean don't swallow? I'm like terrified because I'm scared he's meaning like you're going to burn yourself. So I'm currently like trying not to swallow it. It's halfway down my like esophagus. I'm also trying not to bring it back onto the table so I don't like spit all over the table. And there's like pure panic on my face. Eventually, I can't hold it any longer and I swallow it. And I'm waiting for like a burning sensation, something to feel off. And he's like, you're just supposed to savor it. Savor it? You could have told me that before I gulped this whole thing down. Like, I honestly thought I was going to burn my stomach or something. Not that I just had to enjoy the flavors of the cocktail. Anyway, my friend filmed the whole thing, and I think I'm going to post it to Yapping Fever on Instagram. So follow me on Instagram at Yapping Fever so you can see that hilarious video. And you can actually see the pure terror on my face. After that, we went back to our room and we just drank. We just drank more, guys, to be honest. That night, me and my friend A had a Olivia Rodrigo, like, sing-along. I think S was, like, tired and tried to go to bed, but we were, like, in the same room. And I remember jumping from bed to bed, and I think I face-planted in the middle. Yeah, it was fun. It was such a fun night, and it was such a fun trip. From that trip, I went to Bali for the first time. I didn't go with A and S on this trip, but I did take my close friend Pen. I spent 10 days there, went to Ubud and Seminyak, which of course are very popular tourist destinations I'm sure you've heard of. Pen actually left 3 days earlier, but I stayed on by myself. I was there for Silent Day, called Nepi, I believe that's how you pronounce it in Balinese, which if you don't know is a day where the whole country goes silent and shuts down. It happens every year. and it's taken as a meditation day for the Balinese people. There's no planes in and out of the country, so you can't fly. You cannot play loud music. You cannot have your lights on. You can't go out to eat. Balinese people stay home, and if you're in a hotel, you have to stay on the premises. If you walk out, you can be arrested. So it's a very serious day for them. I was alone in the hotel by then. Pen had already left, and the pools, of course, are very busy because that's all anyone has to do is like be in the hotel room or be at the pool. And I remember at about 2 p.m, I had a pretty big mental breakdown. I called my boyfriend. I wasn't dealing very well with being alone. I was overthinking too much. I had really high anxiety that I couldn't really place for why. And I pretty much spent the whole afternoon crying. And I remember also for dinner, I ate a packet of Oreos because I couldn't go out to eat, and I forgot to like prep to like bring things into the hotel. And I just wanted to include that because I think it's a bit of a reality check. I'm talking about traveling, I'm talking about funny stories and really big highlights, but it is normal to feel lonely. It is normal to have times where you miss home or like something feels off. So just remember that if you're like traveling, like it's not how like everyone told me it would be, like I'm freaking out. It's okay. Lots of people are there with you as well. Besides that, the trip was good. I also got a lot of massages, which I loved because they were really cheap. Last year, I traveled to Hawaii with my boyfriend, which was our first international trip together. Besides that, we'd done Cairns and Hobart. We landed a Black Friday deal on our flights to Hawaii, so we booked and decided to go. We only went to Honolulu because we couldn't hire a car, and that's what you really needed on other islands. So we just stayed around the Waikiki area. We didn't get too much to the North Shore, so if I went back, I'd like to probably stay on the North Shore side and also really do Big Island. Unfortunately, on this trip, I was a little sick. I got vertigo, which I discovered I actually get from flying now, which is not fun. And also, if I'm on elevators, it can be bad. So I kind of had it for the whole... We were there for like 10 days, but I had it for a good week there, which wasn't fun. So I was dealing with that, but we still made the most of it. We went to Walmart. I'd never been to Walmart before. I actually loved it. We were watching like the TV show Superstore at the time. So I feel like it literally was like a superstore. It was really, really cool. We also went to Hanama Bay and snorkeled there. Absolute highlight. You have to book in advance, but it was really cool. I got to snorkel with turtles, which I absolutely love. We drank lots of Starbucks. We also went to Canola Ranch, which was really cool, and we drove dune buggies to the park. So I definitely had a really fun trip. The last international trip I went on was Thailand with my mum last year. Me and my mum went for 2.5 weeks, and we traveled around Bangkok, Phi Phi Island and Phuket. Mum and I get along really great, so I actually love traveling with her. Plus she books all the fancy hotels, which is nice. In Bangkok, the first day we went to the temples, which were so amazing. I literally couldn't believe that like they had so many mosaics that they were like individually placed. Like sometimes you go to temples and they look impressive and cool, but these ones also looked impressive and cool and were like beautiful. So I actually loved going around to the temples. There was one temple that like had a line out the door, and I was like, why is it like so busy? Like, why is this one so popular? So we like lined up, put all our stuff away. You have to like take your shoes off to be respectful. And we walked in, and there was this massive Buddha lying down. And I was like, oh my God, like I didn't realize that would be in here. I looked it up, and it is 45 meters long and 15 meters high. It's called the Reclining Buddha, and it's supposed to symbolize what Buddha looked like actually just before he passed, which was like very content and chilling. He's lying on his side with like his hand on his head. If you're on my YouTube, you can look at me kind of half demonstrate it. Just like that. In Bangkok, we also did a cooking class, which we honestly had so much fun at. Gave us some of the best food we had our whole trip. Went to the floating markets. And then the rest of our trip was definitely more pool and beach vibes. I did get food poisoning. Not fun. 36 hours. Don't eat the salads over there, which I wasn't going to do. And mum was like, it will be fine. Eat the salad. And then I got food poisoning and she didn't, even though she had a little bit too. So not fun. Be careful with the water. Also in Phuket, we went to a elephant sanctuary called Hidden Forest. I could not recommend it enough. Seeing elephants is such a big tourist attraction in Thailand. However, you have to be careful because lots of them are still abusing elephants. I feel like sometimes people now know you shouldn't ride them, but there's other things to do like bathing them. Bathing elephants is really cruel, and there's lots of abuse that goes on behind the scenes that the public don't see, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. This one was amazing. It's run by people who you can tell care about animals. It's actually started by a English couple, and then they have mahouts which look after the elephants 24/7. They are never chained. Most places still chain elephants. These guys aren't. They just get to roam around. You can't touch them. There is like a feeding aspect if they want to eat, and you literally just like walk around their home and follow them. They have the option to like go off path. Like there was one elephant that we didn't see at all. They had 5 and we were there. One elephant was like, I'm going over here. Another elephant was like, I'm having a mud bath. Others like got on the water and swam. And you just like get to see them living their life in nature. And I loved it. I thought it was such a cool experience. You get to get close to them. You just don't touch them. And they really care. And you can tell that there's no abuse. The elephants seem really happy there. All the elephants they've adopted, they've now adopted another one. So they've got 6, have come from the industry of like the riding industry, the logging industry, which is illegal, and have had years of abuse. They did have scars on them, but you could tell they were a lot happier here. So Hidden Forest Elephant Sanctuary in Phuket, go. It's so brilliant. Now that I've yapped to you about my past trips, I think you can definitely tell that I love traveling. So I'm going to give you some tips and things that I think you should remember and definitely keep into consideration when you're booking your next trip. Let's talk about work first. Lots of people when finishing high school debate if they should take a gap year before going to uni. Other people think about traveling in between uni breaks because you get time off uni and it's like a long break. When you get into full-time work, it's definitely harder to prioritize traveling. It absolutely can be done, but if you do want to go on like that long trip, that 6-week trip, it can take time because you need to apply for leave. You need to gain leave. Like leave doesn't just happen to you. You have to work a certain amount to get that time. You normally have to take 2 weeks off at the end of the year anyway, so it can take quite a while to work up enough leave to go on long trips. So if you're working a casual job and you don't need technically to get time off approved, I think it's a great time to prioritize travel. However, people seem to think if it's a casual job, now's the time I should be working to save, and then once I get a full-time is when I should travel, but I'm kind of like the opposite. I think it's great to travel when you're a casual worker because you have work flexibility. You can go to your boss and be like, I'm taking this time off. They technically can't say no. They can fire you. Be aware of that. But know that like if it's a casual job and one that you don't have such high stakes in for like your career, you can come back and get another job. Jobs will always be waiting for you. The economy needs you, people. If you want to travel, I reckon the time is now. Save your money, travel, spend quite a bit, come home, and you can save again if that's for another trip or for other things like houses, moving out, or just like little fun things you want to do around home. So that brings us into the next category, which is of course money. Some people can book their trips and go on trips for quite cheap. Hit all the discounts, save so much, like just stay at cheap hotels and only spend money on essentials. While other people definitely go on holidays to spend their money. They stay at nicer hotels, they have shopping spree money, and they want to dine at the fancy restaurants. I fall somewhere in the middle. I don't travel dirt cheap. One reason, I have no appeal for it. Another reason is safety. As a woman, I think you do have to think more about your safety when traveling, and I definitely take it into consideration. For example, I don't want to share a room with a bunch of strangers I don't know. At least like not 20. Like some hostels are crazy. You have to think about your own safety. You have to think about your belongings. I just don't have the appeal for it. Also, like when booking routes, I don't want to end up like at a train station at 2 a.m. in the morning. I just know it will make me feel uncomfortable and not safe. So I spend more money on hotels that I think are safe and secure, and trip routes that get to destinations that only have like one layover and is landing at good times, daytimes, or like not too late at night. However, I don't dine at the most expensive restaurants. I try to budget and not spend heaps on souvenirs or clothes. With money though, I think your 20s is the perfect time to spend it on holidays because you do have time to work your money back. You're young, you can go on trips, come back and work. Yes, savings is important. I'm all for savings as well, but I think that you can spend money on things that are going to give you great experiences, adventures. Some of my favorite memories, most of my favorite memories are from trips. So if you like it, that's where you should spend your money. It's better to do that than on like materialistic things. Everyone remembers the cool trip they took to America rather than like the handbag that they bought. Another factor for money is if you're in your 20s and you don't have kids and you know you want to travel, maybe travel without kids. Kids can make it very expensive. I'm not saying if you have children, you can't travel. I was really privileged. I got to travel with my parents growing up. However, I'm sure I was an expensive child. I'm sure it made it a lot more expensive. Some places too, like have destinations where you know, like maybe bringing a kid wouldn't be as safe or would be too expensive. So go to the places that you think you definitely want to see in your lifetime. You want to see when you're young and you don't want to drag some kids along with you. The next factor to think about is health, and more specifically, how you don't really have to think about health in your 20s. Back in our grandparents' day, no one traveled young. You would finish school, get a job, get married, have kids, work 50 years, then retire, and then you could go traveling. And like I said, I'm all for saving money, but I do think traveling when you're young and you have youth and you don't have to think about health conditions makes it a lot easier. There's things that your grandparents, if they were to go on a trip, absolutely have to organize, absolutely have to think about that you never second guess when you're young. Some of these include walking long distances, climbing stairs in hotels or tourist sites, long journeys of like plane rides, if you can sleep on a bus, if you can share beds with people, just like these privileges that you never think about in your youth that actually makes your everyday life really easier. And you will have to think about it when you get older. It comes into play like in 40s, in 50s. So use your youth well while you can. Now's the time, you can go to a different country and party all night. You can probably have less sleep. You can enjoy doing things that unfortunately when you get older you can't do as much. So go and see the world, guys. I'm just pretty much telling you, go book your next trip because you're young, you're healthy, it's time to go have fun. The last major factor I think you should think about when traveling is the company you keep. You've got to work out if you prefer to travel solo, with a partner, with friends, with family. It does make all the difference. I'm pretty lucky. I feel like I've got a few options to choose from. But to be completely honest with you, at this stage in my life, I don't want to solo travel. I don't really have a desire to go to new places by myself. If I can be there with a friend, absolutely. But I think if I'm solo traveling, I'm leaving some of my favorite company behind and at home, and I'd honestly just rather be at home with them. Whereas some people absolutely prefer to travel alone. If you do want to travel with friends, my biggest piece of advice would be to test it out. Sometimes you have friends that you absolutely love and get along with, but you actually can't travel together. You don't mesh well on holidays. If you're doing a trip with friends or planning to, I would highly recommend talking about what type of trip you want. They might want to go and party. You might want to go and hike. You choose a destination, it has both, but you think it's pretty obvious why you're going. You get there, you realize you're not on the same page, and then arguments start. Traveling can bring out the worst in you, so you don't want to book a trip and realize you don't get along. I also recommend, if you can, do a weekend away. Do a week together first. I did like that 10-day trip with my girls around Australia first. I wasn't going to start with an international trip because what happened if we didn't get along? What happened if shit hit the fan and we're not fucking friends anymore? Instead, we were like, let's start here. We got along great. So then we worked our way up. Don't dive headfirst into those 2-month Euro trips. I've heard too many stories of friends who have done it and they weren't even that close with the people and they were like, oh, we'll be fine. They weren't fine. you don't want to spend thousands of monies on trips, which is what happens. You spend so much money on your trips and then you not even really enjoy it. I also just want to briefly add that when you're booking trips, remember to take in things like the currency. I know that sounds so obvious, but for example, I talked about my trip to Hawaii. We got really cheap deal with flights, so we were like, perfect, we'll go. However, even though we know the American dollar is like 1.6 Australian dollars, we didn't realize Hawaii is super expensive. Like the island of Hawaii is a lot more expensive than the mainland, so we end up spending a lot more money. So just like think of that. Remember that the pound is double, and also again, a coffee in England is £7, which means it's 14 Australian dollars just to get a coffee. It's not like the pound is cheaper, and then you kind of like it evens out. Europe is about 1.5. Of course, Asian countries normally work more in Australian dollars favor. So just remember that. Other things to think about is like double check some factors. For example, also in America, me and my boyfriend couldn't hire a car because we were on our pay plates, and it definitely restricted where we could go, what we could do. Like if we could hire a car, we could have gone to Big Island. So I just think take into account those considerations, because I think if we thought about that completely, we might have like pushed our trip out so that one of us could drive the car. We were on full license instead. Also, if you're a woman, just remember some laws are different. Again, drinking laws, they range from like 16 to 21. If you're 18, maybe don't go to places where you can't drink if that's something you want to do. I know there's fake IDs, but that is always risky. Maybe you can get away with it in America. I didn't use one, I didn't have to, but like other countries, think about like if you were to get caught and there were consequences, would you really want to be in those situations? So just like make sure you research places, do a bit of a worldly view before you like get into the hype and like, oh my God, it's so cheap, this flight, or this hotel's so cheap, let's book, and then we'll organize everything later. Just double check some things first. And to end this podcast, little yap about traveling, I want to talk about the trips that I have booked this year. I have 2 trips currently booked, and they will be my only 2 trips because I'm spending a lot of money on them. But I'm very excited. My first one is in the end of March, and I'm going to Bali again. This time I'm going with my girls A&S and a few more of A's friends who I don't know that well, which I know is a little bit controversial because I was like, make sure you know everyone on trip. But I do know we're staying in an Airbnb. I'm sharing a room with my friend S, and that it's a trip that you can like either opt in to like do activities or opt to stay home just by the pool. So I think it's a pretty relaxing trip. So I'm very excited. I honestly could just sit by the pool and like read my books the whole week and then just go out at night and I'd be happy. But I'm sure I'll jump on the bandwagon and do some fun activities as well. That's exciting. So that's coming up quite soon, end of March. I leave on the 21st. And then my next trip is Europe. I'm so excited. I wanted to do a Europe trip for years. I've never done a summer Europe trip. It's literally been on my bucket list since I was 16. Nearly went when I was 18 for summer. I did go for winter, but nearly went, when I was 18 for summer, it didn't happen. Nearly went when I was 20, didn't happen. So now that I'm going, I'm so excited. I literally danced around the room. I actually film on like a table here, and I got up and I danced on the table when I booked these flights. I was so excited. I'm spending 2 months there, or 7.5 weeks, so quite a while, and I'm going to Albania, Greece, Italy, Germany and Switzerland. So very excited. The only country I've been to out of them is Germany. So lots of new places. It's a beachy holiday. I'm with my girls. Round of applause for the girls again, because the group trip left the group chat. And as you can tell, we must travel well together because we've extended from 3 weeks to 7 weeks. So very excited. And I know that like you're hearing all this and you're really sad. You're really upset because you're like, oh no, like she's doing a Bali trip, which means she'll be busy. She's doing Europe for 2 months, which means there won't be any podcasts. And joke is on you, because I absolutely will be dropping Yapping Fever podcast episodes. They'll probably be about my trips. They might be just about other topics. So they're still going to come out every 2 weeks. So you can't get out of it. You're stuck. If you're following me, you're along for the journey. It's going to be so exciting. I'm so excited. That's a wrap on today's episode. I hope that you enjoyed listening to some of my stories from my traveling and there were some things you could laugh at. I will be posting some of those highlights and travel experiences to my Instagram at Yapping Fever. So go give that a follow so you can have a look. Also, my personal Instagram is at tamara.barton. If you want to follow me there, please hit follow on Spotify. You can rate the podcast out of 5 stars. I'd absolutely love it. Share it to a friend if you haven't already. Like I said in the last step, I really want to get the word out, so I'd love if you could share it. On YouTube, go and hit like as well and follow. Thanks so much, guys, and I can't wait to have our next yap very soon. I feel like I should be going to Paris because I'm wearing a Paris t-shirt and I never wear this t-shirt. I always buy t-shirts. Like, you know how you always buy t-shirts and then you never wear them? Yeah, so I was like, I gotta wear this t-shirt. Like, I gotta wear a travel t-shirt while I talk about traveling. And I'm wearing this Paris t-shirt and I honestly think me and my girls would thrive in Paris. We would just, it's just a destination for us. Baguettes, croissants, wine. I don't know, yeah, wine. Like, it would just be so much fun. And we're not going. And like, I get why we're not going, but also like a little bit sad. I just think like, would actually love Paris. Could do the Moulin Rouge, the Eiffel Tower. That was an awful accent. No one come for me for that. Please don't hate me on the internet. Anyway, if anyone wants to go to Paris with me, let me know. We can travel there together.